right, welcome to another episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies might have inspired it. And today on the show, this movie needs no introduction. It's One Battle After Another, the best film of the year. I can't imagine what's going to top it. Paul Thomas Anderson just keeps doing it every time out. It's kind of ridiculous at this point, but I had so many people who wanted to join me for this one that I decided to make it a super episode. So we've got 6 people on today's episode. First is a two-person conversation with Joe Black and Louis Samra, who I was supposed to see this with months and months ago. So we decided then and there when we got kicked out of a screening, long story, that we would eventually end up doing an episode on this. So I got them first. Then we're going to talk to Jason Harris, Samantha Soriano, Derrick Murray, and Paul Hibbard. And some great conversations, some great puzzle pieces, lots to say about this movie. That's what's coming up here in a second. Before we get to it, I want to remind you, as always, to make sure you are subscribed to Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow us on social media at Piecing Pod. And with that said, Viva la Revolution! Let's talk about One Battle After Another. All right, Joe Black and Louis Samra are with me to talk about One Battle After Another. How's it going, guys?
Fantastic. This is great. It's an honor to be here. I have a lot to say about this movie.
No, I'm sure.
He very rarely makes a Letterboxd review anymore. I used to live off of his Letterboxd reviews, and now he only does one whenever a Paul Thomas Anderson movie comes out.
I mean, that's a good time to do it. I mean, that's when you have a shitload of stuff to say. So, you know.
Yeah, and it wasn't even so much a review as much as it was just mulling out thoughts that, frankly, at this point, I don't even totally agree with what I wrote. But
Yeah.
like 90% of it, I would probably be like, I don't think that's the case. But
It's funny you
I
say
had
that.
to get there as a process.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I still have only seen it once, and I'm trying to get back to an IMAX screening this week, and then maybe a third time we'll see. But when I got out of the theater, I debated whether or not to do like a little Letterboxd review or to just jot down a list of thoughts,
Yeah.
because that's kind of how I felt walking out of it. There's so much going on here. There's so much that I love. There's really nothing that I really have an issue with, but I need to kind of formulate my thoughts here. And so, yeah, I was kind of in the same boat there.
Yeah, I think at this point with this and Licorice Pizza, I kind of felt the same way, that I think he's a very intuitive filmmaker, and there are so many choices that just completely straight come from convention. So any kind of, my mind is trying to process an arc as I understand it to be, or like a character as I should understand them to develop, and he doesn't go that way. And it just kind of it leaves me in a place of, like, honestly, with this one walking out, I was like, I don't think that worked. I don't think that made sense. And the more I thought about it, the more I actually was like, oh, I think he took me somewhere that I'm just not used to being taken to. Something that makes a lot of sense about our world right now, and about certain archetypes and people and beliefs. And I just, like, honestly, the movie's, I've seen it twice, and it's transforming in my head. The more I think about it, the more I talk about it. And there's no other filmmakers that really work that way, I think.
Yeah. Joe, what do you think as far as what Louis was just talking about there?
Well, honestly, I've seen it. I'm at 4 at this point, and this last time that I watched it, the most emotional I felt watching it, funny enough, was when Sean Penn puts his shoes up on the desk at the end. How well worn the soles of his shoes are.
Sure, yeah.
Like, that really got to me. Like, I felt so much for him in that moment, And it actually reminded me of Daniel Plainview at the end of There Will Be Blood. You know how, like, at the beginning of that movie, he's literally in a hole by himself, with a pickaxe in hand, and then you see him slowly build and build, and at the end of the movie, you see they're finishing the pipeline, and the camera tracks down the line of all the workers, and he's sitting at a desk underneath a tree, working, and I remember thinking, like, wow, like, who are we to tell him he didn't earn that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, who are, like maybe we're wrong, but then the end of the movie ruins that, and that's why I don't like where the rest of that movie goes. Like, I don't like when it flashes forward 15 years or whatever in that movie, because then it becomes a morality tale. You know what I mean? And demonizes him, and that bummed me out. And I think that, like, this is kind of like those soles on his shoes. I mean, there's a lot to be said there.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I completely agree. And
Yeah.
I mean, like throughout the movie, there are choices like that I'm like, every single costume design choice, every single framing device, everything feels felt and understood. And if you look at it, seems to develop something about each character.
Yeah.
And we can say spoilers, right? This is a
Yeah, spoiler away.
spoiler. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. And that ending, if I can like add to that, the second time I saw it, I realized I think the parallel he's creating, because he has Leo and his daughter reunite, and then he goes off into this ending. I think with that, he's creating a parallel between Perfidia and Lockjaw specifically, as
Yeah.
two extremes that are going down two paths of extremism. Lockjaws is literally like a cartoonish ending, but he worked for it and he's happy. And in a way, he reaches the end and that's his demise. But he's just going down a path of radicalism. There's not even a moral element to it. He's going down it because he thinks it's the right path.
Right.
And it blows up in this cartoonish demise. Whereas Perfidia then has resolution through like, compared to the rest of the film, an unconventionally normal scene. They're on their phones. They're, like it's the extreme opposite of Lockjaw scene. It's just a sequence of a home video almost, dad and child hanging out at home. Like talking,
Yeah.
and Perfidia gets her kind of redemption through there. But even then, PTA being unconventional has Willa go straight to her dad and hug him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Which
too, you're talking
those,
about costume choices. I also noticed Perfidia's eyelashes create perfect devil horns.
yeah.
Like they really do. No,
Yeah,
like they,
no, I believe that. Yeah,
she's literally possessed. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
yeah.
it's pretty cool.
Wild.
And I think the movie is kind of saying there is no right and wrong. It's people just kind of fall down certain paths. People
Yeah,
get
absolutely.
confused. People, and at the end of the movie, when she goes to hug him, the second time I saw it, I realized, I was like, well, why does he let his daughter go off and protest? Like, I'm thinking that, and I'm like, his daughter Willa was only born out of the insanity that happened.
Right.
That's that's the only reason she exists. That's so in a weird way, it's kind of him saying, hey, these mistakes, these things that we don't figure out, these things that we choose to do because our impulses tell us to do them, they mean something.
Sure.
They
Yeah.
and those are the lives we wind up living.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's a really great read on that ending there, and I think that makes total sense. Let's start getting into some puzzle pieces here, and like, are there any movies that like, I don't know, the denseness of what he was doing here with kind of saying these things? Is there anything that you guys had thought of that you think kind of parallels this in any way? Joe, I see you shaking your head. Yes, let's go with you first.
Carlitos Way.
Okay, all right.
When the trailer first dropped, Lewis and I were both kind of obsessed with, like, we'd share the trailer with each other, like, how many times we watch it? Let's watch it. We even watch it in the store, on the bigger screen. And the one thing we talked about the first time, especially, was like how off-putting I felt like Tony Montana line was, where it's just like, that's weird. That's not funny. That's not. But watching it, I realized, like, Tony Montana has become like this icon that people worship, but Tony Montana is evil. Like, Tony Montana is an evil character. Like, yes, he is an immigrant. Yes, he is was working assistant, but like, he's evil. That's the whole point of him.
Yeah.
And what's interesting too is that later on in the movie, the kid who's running the store for Benicio del Toro, like running it as a front when the town's being raided, he's wearing a Scarface t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sure, yeah.
True. And I've always thought that Carlitos Way is, in a way, I felt like it was Pacino and De Palma realizing what they had done with Scarface and trying to, like, atone for that. Where, like, I like to make the distinction that Scarface is a movie and that Carlitos Way is a film, because it's a very Tony Montana-esque character who's trying to, like, find redemption by going straight. You know what I mean? But, like, he can't undo what he was. You know what I mean? And it's more tragic in that way, And I think that if you watch the whole design of Carlitos Way, I think it's all a direct response to how they made a hero out of Tony Montana. And the reason they made a hero out of Tony Montana, I think, personally, is the scene where he won't blow up the car with the kids in it. When he's like, oh, don't blow it up, there's kids. That they should not have put that in the movie, because that gives him a phony moral center. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's a phony moment in that movie. Some people try to argue, no, that's the humanity. No, that movie's not human. That's the point of that movie. Like, that's a phony movie scene, you know, and takes away the teeth from and then opens the door for people to hero worship this guy who's an evil, murdering, abusive drug lord.
Sure.
And I think that similarly with Perfidia Beverly Hills there, that like, you know, we all understand the anger and the temptation and all that to go down the path she went down, but it's self-serving and destructive when it gets to that point. You know what I mean? You're literally with your child in your womb firing a giant fucking, you know, gun. Like, you know what I mean? Calling it a thing. Once this thing is out of me, once this, you know, she's completely lost her humanity at that point. So Carlitos Way.
Very good. I love it.
I totally see that. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Lewis, let's go to one from you.
You know, I there were scenes in this movie that made me think of other movies. I don't know that the whole film kind of it's its own beast. It's its own, you know. I'm just going to talk about the ending of the movie, the final shot, and it just what immediately came to my head and how I thought he was processing this reality. It actually made me think of the ending of Rear Window specifically. I think, I mean, hear me out.
I fight for this guy to be on your podcast, and the first thing he does is bust out Hitchcock. You fucking betrayed me.
The filmmaking itself, other than the structure of the car chase, which is very Hitchcockian, I would say.
For sure.
Other than that, nothing in the movie I would compare to Hitchcock, other than this ending. So, if you remember the ending of Rear Window, you know, it's after he spent this whole movie thinking that Grace Kelly's character is not right for him, doesn't like the kind of stuff he likes, or doesn't understand the world the way he does. You know, he goes through this whole arc. He winds up, I forget what it is, he breaks his arm again or something, and then
he falls out the window.
Yeah, that's right. And so they're back in the apartment. The camera rotates. He's asleep. Grace Kelly's reading like a murder mystery, and then she sees he's asleep, pulls it down, and there is a fashion magazine. You know, it's like she's still the same person. She's just doing the bit for him. That's her transformation. That's the love. I think the ending of this movie, especially with the needle drop of American Girl, I think he's doing the same thing with this movie. I think he's, if anything, this guy at the start of the movie is presented as kind of like a, you know, from frame one, he's introduced to the militant group, the revolutionary group, as you know, an explosives expert, a demolition expert. You know, from frame one, he's looking over at Tiana Taylor. Perfidia, yeah. He doesn't seem to have any revolutionary bent or political aspirations. The only thing he seems passionate about in that first part is when he's talking specifically about how the bomb works, or the detonation device works. Later in the movie, when he's talking to his daughter, he's talking to her about Steely Dan and tube amps and recording equipment. So I think through subtle characterizations, I think PTA is writing this character specifically as a kind of a stoner tech, like, you know, analog tech kind of guy who fell into this path. With the journey that this movie takes him through, he learns how to interpret the world as his daughter would see it. He learns the hyper-authoritarian imagery that, you know, she is confronted with, that Gen Z is constantly thinking about, you know. And I think back to that school dance sequence, which doesn't actually show any of the kids dancing. It just specifically goes to armed police walking in, you know, so as if going through all of this, he actually understands, oh, this is why my daughter needs to adopt this perspective. This is why she should go out and fight. This is, you know, and that's kind of seems to be the arc. When she goes off and he lies down, you realize he's smoking a joint. He's still scrolling. He's now scrolling on his phone, so he's still kind of the same he was before, just with new tech.
Maybe a little worse at this point, but yeah.
I would argue definitely. Yeah. You know, he could watch Battle of Algiers on his phone, actually.
Yeah, sure.
You know, that got the biggest laugh when I saw it yesterday. The biggest laugh the whole movie got was when he was watching Battle of Algiers.
Nice.
That was the biggest laugh for some reason.
That's great.
I think that should be laughed at, actually. I think that was.
I agree.
Good. Yeah. But I think that, it seems like, oh, okay, this is an ending where someone finally understands the complexity of needing a revolutionary spirit, of, going out to fight, of kind of, like it seems to read that way, like he hears her listening to the CB radio and, inspires her to dart out. But as soon as he's alone, he wants to go back and he thinks that the world is exactly as he still sees it. I haven't actually developed a really strong read on what he's trying to say with that. Specifically, I think he keeps going back, like PTA does in his movies, to the 70s. His
Mm,
mind is kind of stuck there. His
mhm.
mind, he's obsessed with Steely Dan. He's obsessed with Tom Petty. Uh, and specifically, I think the iconography of Tom Petty is, his tour merch has Confederate flags. He's a liberal artist, but there's something with his iconography specifically that represents a completely different attitude than would be like Perfidia or the Revolutionaries.
Sure, sure.
He's from Jacksonville, Florida, from
Yeah.
my hometown.
Yeah,
Tom
right.
Petty.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so
Well, I was gonna say too that Perfidia murders in offense and Willa murders in defense. Like
yeah,
because like
yeah,
that's kind of the difference there. And I think that the juxtaposition is that when Perfidia is leaving him with the baby, he knows when he says goodbye that Perfidia is never coming back. When Willa leaves, he knows that she's coming back.
sure,
And
yeah,
at the beginning, when Willa leaves, he forces her to tell him that she
yeah,
loves him, like
yeah,
Perfidia did it. And
Yeah.
when Willa leaves at the end, he doesn't ask for it because
that's
he
true.
knows and he feels it.
Yeah,
That's
Like,
great.
yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah.
Good
Exactly.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's, and that's there are so many choices like that the more I think about the movie, I'm like, oh yeah, that's absolutely a deliberate choice that's, reveals so much about these characters and this world. And I don't know if you guys like, because I had written in my review that I thought like it's interesting, is Lockjaw actually his real name or is that like his military nickname?
It's got to be his nickname, but he is like, that's everywhere. It's his name is Lockjaw, so I don't know though.
So yeah, because like, and I guess at this point I'm kind of off the rear window thing, but I'll just
It's
say this
all
good.
point.
all good.
No, this
I
is-
got 6 other guests coming on this show, so yeah, you're good. Don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah, perfidia actually, I think it translates to traitor in Spanish.
Hmm,
Um, literally, and the
really?
song that plays, I was listening to the soundtrack when he's all bloody, Lockjaw walking up the hill after the finale. That Spanish song is called Perfidia.
Hmm,
And so I was thinking, like, okay, these people have chosen their names for themselves, and their names, again, I don't really know where this goes, but I'm just trying to figure out where his mind is going or what he's trying to say. Lockjaw literally gets shot in the face, and at the end, his jaw is deformed. His mouth is deformed. Perfidia's name literally leads her to being a traitor. So it's like the second these two people commit to an identity, it's inevitable path to what it is they have literally dubbed themselves.
hmm.
I don't know.
That's great.
Perfidia's not her
what
real name, right? That's her nickname, I think,
I,
like her code
everybody
name.
calls it Perfidia.
yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know. What about Jungle Pussy?
yeah. It's
Well, I mean,
She's the
alias
worst
Jungle
actor in
Pussy.
the movie, actually.
really?
I'll say it right now,
I think everybody in this movie is doing great work. I mean,
except for her.
nah, I don't know. They're all
I
good.
think for me, I'm just curious who you guys think is like the MVP. I want to say Regina Hall because she is, but I can't help but love Tony Goldwyn.
He's amazing.
As like
Yeah,
He's great.
the head of the Christmas Adventurers. He
Yeah.
like but Regina Hall though, like wow.
Yeah, she's great.
Just wow.
Absolutely fantastic. I mean, I can't turn away from Benicio del Toro though. Is just
Oh yeah.
so good.
That's
Yeah.
cheating though.
Yeah, I know.
That's
It's
cheating
the
though.
obvious
Yeah, so
answer.
like yeah.
Yeah. He now has my favorite lead performance and favorite supporting performance of the year right now. So
Great.
Same.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
I
both
hope he wins
Anderson
both.
films.
Yeah, both Andersons, absolutely. So
Yeah.
any other puzzle pieces? We've gone a little long, so let's just jump quickly in. Anything else you guys wanted to bring up before we wrap
Well,
up?
I am probably going to regret saying this because I'll go on record as saying this. I hate the movie that this thematically made me think of the most, honestly, and Benicio's presence probably added to it, was Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
Sure.
Masterpiece.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually
You're
think
in good
that
company, Louis.
Yeah, we're
working towards
we're
similar
all
themes
smart
and
people
similar ideas
here.
about revolutionaries
Yeah.
and like I think the movie like literally ending with her saying that line of like that's how we're gonna win, saving what we love, not fighting or destroying what we hate or whatever. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's what this movie is working towards as
I
well.
agree.
In a much more complicated, I mean, that's like a movie for children to get that message, which I think is brilliant. I think,
I would argue so is this one, though. No, hang on. I would argue so is this one in the best way, that like the communication is just as direct and silly with Perfidia Beverly Hills and Lockjaw, and I think it's the same thing.
Sure.
I think you're a genius. I was mad at you for Hitchcock, but then you totally redeem yourself with The Last Jedi.
Hell yeah, love it. How about you, Joe?
I did it for you.
Thanks, man. Getting Straight, the Elliot Gould movie about campus protests that was kind of a direct response to Kent State. It's about a guy who was famous on campus for being, for leading anti-government protests, but then he dropped out of college and then got drafted, went to Vietnam, and is back now at the same college trying to get his teaching degree. And the revolution is, growing and growing, and he sees it now as a bit older and as an outsider, and he kind of sees the artifice behind the intention. And there's a big riot in the middle of the movie. And afterward, his girlfriend who was at it was like, "Did you see how terrible that was? It was so horrible." He goes, "It was pretty sexy, wasn't it?" And she's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Oh, come on. Every single person who was there tonight is getting laid right now." Mm-hmm. And when he tries to make a defense, because the college starts to see him as somebody that they could use to quell the rebellion, they bring him in and he's talking to the dean. And he's like, "Dude, what are you?" But Elliot even says, he's like, "Look, that kid running right now with a torch in his hand. Last week, all he cared about was getting laid. Like, all he cared about was being free. That's all he." And then at the end of the movie, when Elliot has this big freak out, if you guys haven't seen Getting Straight, go see it. It's the best Elliot Gould movie. All you long goodbye hangers on, I get it, but you just haven't seen the Getting Straight. It's so good. At the end of the movie, a huge riot is breaking out as Elliot is giving his final dissertation to be able to get his degree, and he just can't take it. And he stands up for himself, freaks out the entire organization, joins the rebellion by throwing a rock through a window. And then in the middle of the riot, he takes his girlfriend behind the stairs and they fuck. And that's how the movie ends. And this movie reminded me of that big time. And I think that it brilliantly plays plays the hits. It brilliantly says you fetishize what this is like. You fetishize what it means, and that's the problem. That you actually think what you're doing is cool and righteous and blah blah blah. When somebody who's actually living it, like Benicio del Toro's character, right. It's just part of his routine, how he lives his life. It's sexy, it's fun, it's cool, it's important.
And to add to that notion, there is the sequence they keep showing in the trailers, with the first trailer where Perfidia's mother says, my daughter comes from a long line of revolutionaries, that whole scene. The opening shot to that sequence, you don't see it in the trailer, is an establishing shot of it being a mansion, and behind her, there's a Black Panther photo. Or painting of literal Black Panthers. And he's kind of making the point that it's somewhere down the line in this family, people did fight. People did, but that fighting becomes corrupt and the ideology becomes like a game almost. It's Perfidia's born into a wealthy family. What is revolution for her? It's just a game. It's just going out and
then juxtaposed with Benecio, when you're in his apartment, he has the tiger painting.
Yep.
Above his, you know what I mean? And that's what he's fucking doing. You know what I mean? It's this movie. Joe O'Neill, Joe O'Neill. I took him to go see this yesterday, and I asked him afterward, because Boogie Nights is one of his favorite movies of all time. I said, "What do you think?" And he goes, "PTA needs to dial it back some." And I was like, "Why?" And he goes, "Because this is it's too good. It's too much to actually take in, that it's kind of it's almost off-putting in how overwhelming it is."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I kind of get what he was saying. I kind of get that. He might be right. But it's the best movie of the year, no contest.
Yeah,
and it's the first time since The Social Network where, to me, the consensus on what the best movie of the year is seems to be right.
Right. Yeah.
So first time in 15
Thank
years.
God.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm getting the curtain here.
You got it. I'm gonna
to work, but this was an honor.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Lewis, and thank you, Joe. Jason Harris is here to talk one battle after another. How's it going, Jason?
Dave, I am rolling up and down the hills of California, just like the climactic car chase, which blew my mind. I saw it in IMAX. Did you see it in IMAX?
I saw it in Dolby, which was incredible, but I'm hoping to get back to see it a second time because I have to see it in IMAX, yeah.
And you know what? I'll go with you a second time to see it again. And you know me, one, I'm not a person who's like, you got to see it this way or that way, although obviously we all want to see it as best as possible. And two, I'm not a person who's like, I normally I'll schedule a second viewing of a 3-hour movie in the theater,
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I'm up at this film festival, Cordillera, which is a great festival, international film festival up in Reno. And once a year at this festival, I sneak away from. It's all in a Cineplex, multiplex. So I sneak away from whatever's going on at the festival, and I just catch something on my own, usually in the IMAX. And
yeah.
This year I did one battle after another, and it was the best. It was the best decision I've made.
Oh, yeah. I always used to do that whenever I would travel for film festivals as well. And, we see lots of great indie stuff, but then we see something great like this. I actually saw Mother that way. But, yeah. Let's talk about it. What did you think? And what kind of pieces do you have for this?
Okay, so first of all, I know we've all probably acknowledged that, like, we all heard it was the greatest thing ever before we saw it, right?
Kind of. Plus it's PTA, so we kind of expect a lot anyway.
But I mean, PTA I like, obviously, but I'm not a knobhead for him or whatnot. I think he's great, but I'm not. And I was looking forward to this, and then all the hype came, and then that can sometimes lead to like an overhyping without it. This lived up to all the hype very easily for me. I couldn't believe it. Maybe once a year I see a movie like this where I'm just like mesmerized. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, like, dude, this is, I think, all of our probably favorite movies of the year, but like, you got to start looking at it as like where it ranks along the decade at this point.
I know, and I'll just interrupt you and just say, Licorice Pizza is my favorite movie of the decade, and now it's neck and neck between these two, which is kind of crazy.
I think this is my favorite movie this decade.
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly thought it might have been The Brutalist last year, but this is that good, and like, it just gets you from the jump. All the kind of French 75 raids at the beginning of the movie, and then that whole first sequence is great, and then we get this time jump, and now we're in like a different world, but still the same world, and it just kind of was amazing. I just couldn't believe how good everything was, and it uses all the things that you expect, like the Altman style ensembles coming together and weaving. And I know there's references to Magnolia a lot of people are making, but so that's the one thing that I loved about it. The other thing is, and we know this with PTA, everyone brings their A game when they're with him, or maybe he gets it out of them. But like, on Awesome Movie Year or the trailer episodes for Piecing It Together, we talk about like Sean Penn, people like that doing like more of these low budget. They got to get paid. I get it. Right. So like, what a delight to see him. Like, I mean, he's got to win the Oscar for this, right? Like, you can't have a better supporting performance than what he did. I mean, honestly, they all deserve Oscar nods to me. Him. This is the year of Benecio between this and Phoenician Scheme.
Hell yeah.
DiCaprio always kills it. And then all three of the females were awesome. And, I didn't love 1001, but I thought Teyana Taylor in this was just on fire, dude. So I thought all three of the women were great. The setting's great. The look is great. But I referenced that car chase. I'd never seen anything like that on film. I mean, and we just covered Duel on Awesome Movie Year. So we've covered things where you're doing POVs of like cars, but like this was amazing. And every segment is amazing. So, I mean, that's all I can't praise it highly enough, but I don't really give out a ton of 5-star movies. I'd give this more than 5 stars.
It's crazy. And I feel like, that's part of the reason why I wanted to do a super episode. I know we all are just going to have so much to say about it and so much that we want to talk about this thing. So I figured I'd get a bunch of different voices on this. But let's go to a couple of pieces. I mean, do you want to throw Duel on the list as a puzzle piece? I mean, you kind of could for that.
You can throw Duel on there. I mean, at the same way, another one that's referenced a lot, not just that I'm going to reference, but the French Connections also referenced a lot with the car chase and also the kind of 70s crime vibe, because this does feel like the best of the 70s movies, right? Like, this is what we love about the 70s, and this is the straight line of a film buff, a historian taking what was and what is. And I think you also see that in those like quote unquote ice raids at the beginning, like also very prescient with what's going on now, right? But like all that stuff is shot like so amazing and like 70s style. I really love that. So we can throw Duel and the French Connection on there for that. one that I thought that I know we both love was Jeremy Saulnier's Green Room because of the white supremacists. And what I like about it is they, they're not just monsters. They're monsters, but they're like monsters who are human, right? So that's one thing I took from it.
They're kind of pathetic, and like you don't feel for them, but at the same time, you're also like, oh man, these poor fucking monsters.
Yeah, but it's great that like you're saying, I know you've been posting like some of the right wing hate on this movie.
Yeah.
It just makes me love this movie more. Like, whatever, dude. Like, if you make a great movie, grow up. Like, just because it doesn't agree with you. So
totally.
Do you want me to just keep going with pieces, or what do you think?
If you got one or two more you want to bring up, everybody's bringing like 2 or 3 to this. So
all right. I mean, I'll throw some maybe some ones that people maybe not didn't think about. Related to Awesome Movie, we covered Riley Stern's Faults. This definitely the sensei and kind of relationship with Bob reminded me a little of The Art of Self-Defense.
Yeah.
Another great Riley Stearns movie, and this one obviously the relationship turns out better. I loved all that stuff with that segment, and I know we're about to do Last Dragon 40th anniversary, and that kind of inner city feel is going to really tie in nicely.
Nice.
On Awesome Movie Year, we covered Lone Star, which deals with like coyotes and people crossing the border and just kind of the law enforcement around areas like that.
What a great movie.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was thinking things like that. And then, of course, the idea of like, you don't really know what your parents do. We see that a lot. True Lies was my piece on that one. So,
fair.
I mean, but honestly, like I could see it again and get a whole different set of pieces and would be happy to see it again and do that. When the movie ended, I went into the filmmakers lounge and everyone's like, did you go to Shorts Block 3? And I was like, I went to one battle after another. And they like some guy today sent me like one of the reels of like every film bro right now, and it's like, man, if I could just meet PTA, I'd suck his brain for knowledge and all that, and it's like everyone else should stop making movies, and it's just, and I was like, man, you got me. And I'm not a PTA head, like I said, but like obviously we all love most of what he does, but this is number one for me. This is his best movie.
Right on. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap it up. Jason, where can people find you and everything you're up to?
Well, Dave, we just talked about Awesome Movie Year. We're right there in 1971. Duel, French Connection's coming up. It's a great year to start listening if you haven't listened, because we're doing all of those. I'm at Jason Harris Comedy or Jay Harris Comedy on all the socials, running a billion trivia nights around town. A lot of movie trivia. Come out and hang out with us.
Absolutely. Jason, we'll talk to you again soon. All right, Samantha Soriano's with us to talk about One Battle After Another. How's it going, Samantha?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm great. I'm excited to be talking about this movie with so many people. For people listening, this is Samantha's first time on one of my like online recorded episodes. Usually I've had her on the live shows before. I wish I did a live show on this. I was scared off by the runtime and God, am I stupid.
It honestly, it feels like it was not even 3 hours. It flew by.
It was so fast. I wish it was longer. It was just going from one thing to the next. It's one battle after another. It just keeps on going, and it just never slows down. I can't wait to see this again, honestly. But what did you think? I want to hear your thoughts on this thing before we start getting into some puzzle pieces.
I recently actually just got to rewatch it yesterday. I had the opportunity to go to an early screening back in March, kind of like a test screening for a lot of people for Warner Bros. It was, I mean, I already had declared it my 2025 pick of the year. There have been some good movies being released this year, but I feel like so far nothing's topped One Battle After Another. And rewatching yesterday just kind of made that a little bit more solid. Getting to kind of see pieces that maybe I wasn't paying attention to the first time, and just overall just such a fun ride, even after a rewatch. So I can't even imagine everyone watching it for the first time right now.
Yeah, I mean, because it's fun. It's a very fun movie, but it's also so packed. It's like it's so much movie in that movie that it's like it is just you could watch it so many times and get so much out of it. And that I'm really excited to go back and see it. I'm hoping to go like tomorrow at the time of this recording, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, I can't imagine anything topping this for me at this point in the year. And yeah, it's just wild. And I should have expected that from Paul Thomas Anderson. I mean, right now Licorice Pizza is sitting at my number one of the decade, and this is like a serious contender for topping that, even though I'm gonna have to watch it a couple times and decide on that. But anyway, let's get into some puzzle pieces. What did you think of for this one?
It's kind of a little bit everywhere just because I also feel like it's very unique. It definitely does take inspo from like, um, I don't know, films of like revolutionary people and things like that, but I do feel like it's definitely, even with like PTA's filmography, I think it's very unique. You have films like There Will Be Blood and the other works of his that I think are very suspenseful. And I think
Mhm.
that's what a friend of mine called him recently. They're like, I feel like he's like the new master of suspense as far as like our generation goes, just because you're not aware of what's going to happen. But
Mhm.
I guess a pick that I would say, just because it's coming off on the top of my mind, is Colombiana. It's definitely, totally off, totally different films, but I feel like just that being born into something, being born into family that maybe I guess like kind of like the tagline on Letterboxd, where it's like some people pick their battles, some people are born into it. And I
Mhm.
definitely feel like Colombiana, with having her father killed right in front of her and things like that. It's not the same story, of course, but we see this character of Leo and Tiana Taylor's daughter kind of taking on that path eventually, maybe not for the same purpose, but
Sure.
yeah, I would say that one's on the top of my mind.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I don't even remember if I saw that movie when it came out, but I remember Zoe Saldana, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And there's not a lot of like good movies about revolutionaries and those kind of things. And I don't know why that is. I don't know why it's hard to nail down. And maybe it's partially hard just because I mean that topic is very touchy in general, and so whoever's kind of coming at it better have an angle. They better have some kind of story worth telling, and maybe sometimes, even though the point of the revolution is worthwhile, maybe just the storytelling in the movie itself isn't always, it doesn't always come together. But it certainly does here. And yeah, I'm gonna have to check out Columbiana. I do not remember if I ever actually saw that one. But yeah, interesting pick to start off with. What else do you got?
Um, I guess kind of going off what you said, because I definitely do agree. There's not many, especially in like our political climate right now. There's not a lot of films that portray these anti-hero, kind of like Robin Hood style people, where maybe my pick right now won't be the best example. I'm thinking more so just in the beginning of the film, introducing the French 75, kind of like a Baby Driver style, where they're just kind of like going in, going out, doing these things, setting bombs off, even though their intentions are way different in Baby Driver. They're stealing from banks and things like that. I would say kind of the same concept, but just at least the scenes from that early part of the film definitely remind me of Baby Driver.
Yeah, and that's not something I would normally associate with PTA, but at the same time, man, does he pull off these action sequences in this, and they're freaking kinetic and fun and just really exciting stuff. And yeah, I mean, as far as movies that kind of like go for those kinds of insane, intense modern action sequences, but someone who's clearly Edgar Wright's clearly inspired by all of the stuff of like the 70s and whatnot, where it maybe wasn't as crazy and over the top as far as the action sequences, but more concerned with more big ideas and things like that. I think that's somebody who kind of meshes that pretty well. Any others you want to bring up?
Um, like I said, I feel like just because this film to me at least is very unique. I would say maybe even just from his own works, like PTA's own work, like There Will Be Blood, when it comes to just like that suspenseful, like you're kind of waiting for something to happen, and like in There Will Be Blood with like you're waiting for some explosion to happen, and I think for me it was that scene with the car chase where they're just kind of going down the hills and you're just kind of like, what's gonna happen? Like, is she gonna get caught up? And then eventually we do, I'm not gonna spoil it, but we do see what ends up happening with the car situation and the Christmas adventure guy kind of chasing after her. And I think that's definitely PTA coded to me as far as like the outcome and the whole build up to that. So I think
Yeah.
that's a pick.
Yeah, I mean, I would throw right on top of that. I mean, if we're going to talk about PTA, I mean, I think that this is the most fun he has had since Boogie Nights, and it definitely like kind of feels like that kind of big tapestry of characters. It also, of course, Inherent Vice being from the same author, the same source material. This almost feels like a more successful version of what he was trying to do with adapting Inherent Vice last time. But yeah, There Will Be Blood, though. That's another thing too. Like, I wouldn't necessarily consider PTA like a very political filmmaker, but like clearly it's there with There Will Be Blood, and it's there with The Master, and it's especially there now, and he pulls it off like amazingly.
No, and I agree. I feel like you just kind of look outside and see his full filmography, and you have like a little bit of everything. But I don't know, he's just master of all trades. I feel like he definitely knows how to pick a really good or create a really good story and kind of go from there. So
Yeah,
I do
yeah,
agree with that.
absolutely. Well, any closing thoughts on this before we wrap it up?
I would definitely say if you have the opportunity to go watch it in the big screen, definitely do so. I mean, that goes for all movies, but specifically this one, just with the sounds. I got to see it in IMAX yesterday, and the sounds were phenomenal. The views just really great, and I feel like maybe with people hearing a lot about it being political, they're maybe thinking they're going into something very serious. But I feel, in my opinion, I think it's very hilarious. It's kind of a comedy, in my opinion. So
Hmm.
um, I would say definitely go watch in the theaters.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is definitely a lot more funny than I think would maybe, let on. I think people don't quite understand what they're getting into when they go to it. And yeah, it was a great experience my first time, and I'm definitely planning on going back for IMAX the second time. But yeah, this was great, Samantha. Tell people where they could find you and your Instagram and everything else.
Yeah, my Instagram as well as my letterbox actually is at SamBased. I'm definitely looking to kind of get more community on Letterbox, so if you want to check that out, and as well as just my film page at Film School Textbook.
Awesome. Well, glad to be able to get you on one of these, and I'm sure we'll hopefully get you on another live one sometime soon.
Sounds great. Glad to be there.
Derrick Murray is back with us. We're going to talk one battle after another. How's it going, Derrick?
It's going well. How are you, man? I'm very, very excited. I love this movie.
Oh, yeah.
This movie is everything. My gosh.
It's like no shortage of people who want to talk about this movie because I mean, what is going to top this? Honestly, it's going to be really, really tough.
Yeah, I don't know, and I've pretty much crossed off almost all most all of the big awards contenders that are coming out here, just from TIFF and Sundance. So I've seen almost everything. I mean, there's a few outliers that I think might show up, but I don't know what's beating this. This is the movie, not just the movie of the year, but I think it's the movie of our decade. I think it's the movie of our time. I've seen it twice now, and I just can't stop thinking about it. I love it.
I'm curious, and this isn't something I'm asking the other people that are participating, but I'm curious, as someone who loved it as much as you loved it, how are you on Inherent Vice?
So it's funny because this movie feels uh, like the fine tuned,
Yeah.
dialed in. We tried the experiment with the Inherent Vice, and it didn't quite work.
Yeah.
But it feels like he fixed all the things that he did in that one, and really brought it to life one battle after another. That being said, I don't care for Inherent Vice.
Mhm.
It's probably my least favorite PTA.
Yeah.
It's definitely at the lower list. What's crazy, PTA is one of those people where like even the film I like the least, which is something like Inherent Vice, it's still like a 3.5.
Sure.
Like that's as low as it gets. Like he doesn't have a movie below like a 7 out of 10. It's just the guy just bats at such a high average. So I'm pretty out on Inherent Vice, even though this movie and One Battle After Another have a lot in common. When it comes to that.
I'm pretty much in the same boat, except I do think one day it's going to click for me, but I don't know. It might take a while. It might take 2 or 3 or 4 more viewings, and God knows when I'll get to that. But let's get to One Battle After Another. Let's just jump right into some puzzle pieces, and then we can talk about whatever else along the way. But what did you think of for this one?
Yeah, there's a few. I'm going to start, and I feel like this is kind of cheating, but I do feel like it's important because it is so. One puzzle piece is clearly just Paul Thomas Anderson in general. Like if you just look at his filmography and what it is he does, this feels like I've always looked at PTA's film career kind of in stages, right? So you have this late 20s arrogant prick. With things like, your coked out hangout movies like Boogie Nights, Magnolia, even Hard Eight to a certain extent, where you have these sort of just bizarre stories that all still have something to do with like broken people and regret and kind of coming to the end of your life, but also approached with just a ton of cynicism. And while he is trying to tackle, kind of a moment in time, so like Boogie Nights is 70s, Magnolia feels a little bit modern because it is kind of taking place in that particular time of like present day without being present day. It's just kind of in this alternate universe.
Sure.
So he's got that, and then he grows up and he starts maturing, and he makes things like There Will Be Blood in The Master and Phantom Thread, which all still kind of deal with those same things, but they also kind of take a much more somber turn. They're a lot more introspective. They're a lot more mature. So I say Paul Thomas Anderson is a puzzle piece for his own movie because One Battle After Another seems to take both of those stages that we're very familiar with and kind of combine them into this culmination of film work.
Yeah.
So it's got tinges of the kind of mass sprawling characters that are kind of just pop in and out. So like, I think of somebody like Benicio del Toro's character, who is not, he's a massive part of the film, but only for 20, 30 minutes, right? He just kind of pops in and that's just that's a Magnolia thing to do. That's a Boogie Nights thing to do. But you won't really find that in something like Phantom Thread or There Will Be Blood. Like those characters stick around, right? We follow one person kind of through the whole thing. Same thing with Tiana Taylor's character. Like she shows up in the first 30 minutes, and while she's the catalyst for pretty much all events that happen, and she looms large even if she's not physically present. She's only in the movie for 30 minutes or so in that first like 30, 40 minutes, and those are just such PTA things to do. So I know it feels kind of cheating to like pull from his own filmography, but it really does feel like he's taking all the arrogance of Magnolia and all the matured, somber look of things like The Master, and then just combining them and then giving this action cinema, crowd-pleasing sheen on top of both. And to me, that's just incredible. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that this definitely does go back to everything that he's done. It meshes it together so well. And like you said, in a crowd pleasing kind of action-packed, fun kind of way. It's also very funny, which he's always been, even in the more somber things. There's still humor in all those movies. And it really just takes a little bit from everything that he's been doing all this time and just, does really kind of the best version of that. But I think absolutely right. And I think through all these conversations, there's going to be plenty of PTA coming up, and for good reason. Absolutely. What else do you want to bring up?
I do. Obviously, Scorsese is a massive influence on PTA, and so you just can't have a PTA movie without the Scorsese influences. There's a lot of, I would say, kind of The Departed, a lot of even some Wolf of Wall Street stuff in there, with just the way that characters, again, just kind of come in and out with the conversations that they have. So I think I'd probably venture to say that there's some big puzzle pieces of, more specifically, maybe Goodfellas and then The Departed. I think a lot of those things are in here. I think of some I think of some of like the shock action that happens in this movie where things just kind of all of a sudden there's violence and you just weren't ready for it.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too deep into spoilers, but there are definitely some things that happened where I was like, oh, somebody watched The Departed very recently. So that's definitely another puzzle piece that I have there for sure.
I like it. And it's funny because like for the same reasons you're talking about, I was more so going to Coen Brothers and stuff like No Country for Old Men and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, same basic idea. And as far as Scorsese, I mean, all art is political, but you know, Scorsese with Killers of the Flower Moon was being like very outright political to the very specific moment that we're in right now and reflecting that in different time periods. And you know, I think right now PTA was like, you know what? Fuck it, I'm going to be political and I'm going to like really get into a story like this. And good for him. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, trying to think some other ones. I mean, you can tell this is just like a highlight reel of things that have inspired PTA. I mean, there's some Quentin Tarantino baked into there with some, I think a little bit of like Hateful Eight, a little bit of Django Unchained. Where, you know, these characters are a little bit larger than life and they almost exist out of time. But then there's something that kind of grounds them back in. There's definitely some of that. I think a lot of PTA kind of capturing some of that political paranoia. And so I think he digs back into his bag of, especially because he's trying to use 60s, 70s revolutionaries and revolutionary tactics updated into like a modern present day era.
Yeah.
And so you can feel, I mean, there's literally a moment where Leonardo DiCaprio is watching the Battle of Algiers, which is clearly a puzzle piece here. But more specifically into the paranoia that, you know, when we talk about kind of American politics and how there's like a political paranoia, as this is very much a political thriller. So I think of things like Parallax View, Clute. I think those movies really kind of capture some of that, even a little bit of the comedy of Network. There's a little bit of that too. But those like big 70s political thrillers are definitely here in this. So those are some other big ones that I think kind of permeate this movie.
I wonder if we're going to see a lot more of that going forward. I feel like, you know, there's been a few other things that, you know, we could definitely point to. I mean, hell, there was even a Marvel movie that was inspired by all that stuff. But like, I wonder if like we're in a moment with everything going on in the world of politics that we're going to see a big return to those kinds of 70s paranoia thrillers. I feel like we probably are.
Yeah, and look, if PTA wants to do it, I am all in.
100%.
I love what he does. I've called this movie, it's both timely and timeless. So even though it feels like it's very specifically speaking to our time, you could remove it from our current time and put it anywhere you want. And I think it'll still be relevant. And I think the way that he frames his characters, the way that this movie really explores generational revolution and generational power, generational systems, generational governments. It almost doesn't matter that it feels like he's speaking directly to our time. You could have released this movie in the 70s and it still would be just as relevant to any kind of fight against injustice or oppressive regime. Like, it would still apply. You can honestly just put this movie in any moment in time. It just happens to correlate with the time that we have now, and what's happening now. And I think that's just such a powerful. It's just such a powerful piece of cinema when you do that. So,
well, I think that's a great place to wrap it up on. Derrick, where can people find you and all your writing and everything you're up to?
So you can find all of my writing either on Rotten Tomatoes or you can find it at nerdbot.com. All my reviews are coming out. Just banging them out with Tiff. I have so many movies to catch up, and they keep making movies. Apparently, movies just keep coming out in theaters.
The nerve of them. When I have all these things to watch, I mean, come on.
Can you just let me catch up? Come on, guys. And then you can find me on social media at Derrick Comedy. It's DROK Comedy on pretty much everything. So
right on. Well, thanks so much for doing the show again, and we'll get you back again sometime soon.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Paul Hibbard is back with us to talk about One Battle After Another. How's it going, Paul?
Great. How are you doing, David?
I'm great. I'm just excited to be spending the day talking to a bunch of people about this movie because I mean, I can't stop thinking about it. I know everybody else can't stop thinking about it. And so getting to have all these conversations is definitely helping me process some things, I should say.
Yeah, this is the kind of film that it just grows and grows the more you talk about it and the more you hear other people love it. So I'm sure you're having a great
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah, it's been a very fun day and a lot of I mean, the one thing I think we all could kind of agree on is this is like the best movie of the year, but then everybody
Mhm.
has their own kind of points of view and everybody has their own like kind of ideas of certain things. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say because I think you posted like immediately like holy shit and like so
Mhm.
I mean I think we're in kind of the same mindset here.
Yeah, my first reaction was very just a visceral reaction to it. I'm gonna rewatch it again this week and try to write something a little more thoughtful, but at first it was just like, "Holy shit,
Yeah.
this movie is something else. This movie's special."
Yeah, absolutely. Where did you we'll get into some puzzle pieces in a second, but like where did you kind of come into this one? I asked a couple of people, not everybody, but like I want to kind of set the scene with where you are with Inherent Vice because I feel like that's important going into this movie a little bit, given the source material and everything.
I love Inherent
You
Vice. I'm
do.
a big I'm a big defender, a big supporter of that film. It is him at his funniest,
Hmm.
and even though the movie makes very little sense, it's a kind
Yeah.
of film that I will pause because I'm laughing so hard at. Especially, I rewatched it actually a few months ago, and the scene when Joaquin Phoenix is talking about being accused of killing someone, and Reese Witherspoon tries to comfort him and says, "Do you think maybe you did it and just forgot about it?"
Yeah.
Is a scene that I have to pause because I am crying at that scene. But yeah, so I'm a big defender of Inherent Vice. I love
Wonderful.
it.
Wonderful. Well, let's get into some pieces. What do you got for this one?
Okay, so the first one, and I'm sure the people have said this, I've heard this from other people who have seen the movie, is this movie kind of feels to me like the culmination of Paul Thomas Anderson's career. So in a way, I would just say all the films of Paul Thomas Anderson.
Mhm.
I think it's really interesting because you got Boogie Nights, where DiCaprio was originally supposed to be Dirk Diggler, and Sean Penn was supposed to be the drug dealer,
Right,
and that
right.
Alfred Molina ended up playing. So it's cool that you got them two together finally in this film. The rest of the films, Magnolia, if nothing else, they just mentioned Tom Cruise in this movie. You got Punch Drunk Love, which I feel like is a film that feels the most satisfying with its ending, and this film feels very satisfying with its ending. You have There'll Be Blood, which is him getting more political, which kind of culminates into this film. You got The Master, which, if nothing else, is about weird religions and cults, and that kind of reminded me of the stuff that Sean Penn was getting into. You got Inherent Vice with the Pynchon connection. You got Phantom Thread, which is Paul Thomas Anderson really, I think, diving into comedy. I think Phantom Thread is one of the funniest movies. I said that about Inherent Vice, but I think Phantom Thread is absolutely hilarious.
Mhm.
And then you have Licorice Pizza, where, if nothing else, the ending of this film, the way that the car chase felt, reminded me, not in the way that it was executed, but in what it did. It reminded me of the scene in Licorice Pizza when they were going backwards in the vehicle down the hill, and it was
Sure.
complete silence. I remember being on the edge of my seat for that moment, and I was for the end of this. So I'll just say this just feels like the culmination of P.T. Anderson's career.
Yeah, and I do think you're absolutely right. I think that there is so much that you could draw on from all of those movies. I think a lot of the specific examples that you mentioned, and I think that there's other moments and ideas and themes from those movies that you can also bring up, where it definitely does feel like this is. And we've seen this a lot lately. I feel like last year we were talking about, maybe like Scorsese doing that. We were talking about like, other filmmakers that are like kind of looking back at their career and kind of re-engaging with a lot of the same ideas and trying like new approaches to some of the things that they had previously done. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that PTA is doing here, absolutely, and maybe a little bit trying to recalibrate Inherent Vice just a tad, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
for everybody else who was like, "What the fuck am I watching?" But
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, absolutely. What else do you got?
I sure the people have said this, but I have Eddington.
Mm,
But more than Eddington, I feel I feel hopeful about what political filmmaking is going to be like for the next 4 years, because I really hated political filmmaking during Trump's first
sure.
presidency. I remember, when you think of like political filmmaking during the Bush years, and a lot of it kind of came together in 2007, and There'll Be Blood was part of that movement. I remember just how much I loved political films back then, and I feel like the political films during Trump's first presidency were so toothless. They felt very corporate. They felt very much like it was, I mean, representation is a good thing, but it felt like they just weren't very dangerous. And it was, I mean, you have the exceptions. You got Black Klansman and Sorry to Bother You, and some films that were highlights, but I feel like both Eddington and One Battle After Another, the fact that they are political, they're not perfectly political, right? It's almost like political filmmaking during Trump's first year was like a tweet ready to be retweeted.
Right.
These films feel dangerous to the point where some of them are pissing off people from the left,
Sure.
which is I think not a bad thing at all.
It's important. It's very important. You can't have just a sanitized message, or else it's just bullshit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just say that so far, I'm pretty happy with the direction of where filmmaking's going to go. I remember I said a few months ago that during Bush's years, we got There'll Be Blood, and during Trump's years, we got Captain Marvel. Like that was like the example of what political filmmaking was.
Right.
So I feel hopeful, and I think it is good that you have both Ari Aster and P.T. Anderson who have clout to be able to burn it possibly, because I know both these films might not be the most financially successful films, but they are, I think, possibly burning their clout in a way that I think is going to guide others, and it makes me excited.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I've got a couple of things I want to say about what you just brought up, because first of all, going back to the first Trump era, and just how it kind of stopped political filmmaking dead in its tracks. I was the biggest South Park fan. I love South Park fan. And that first Trump era just killed South Park. They had nothing left to say. And it was just so embarrassing and just bad. And from what I hear, I haven't like picked it back up, but from what I hear, it's kind of coming back around, and like people are really loving the last few things that they've done. And so, you know, that's just an example of political filmmaking. And maybe this time around, people are kind of learning the lessons of, you can't just say, you know, Orange Cheeto Man bad, and like that's the end of your, you know, end of your thing. The other thing though is I'm glad you brought up Eddington, because nobody else did so far in these conversations.
Good.
It is so apt to bring that movie up, because they do, I think, come from similar places here. And it's so weird. I know you're not as active on Twitter, which is a smart thing, but there are some people on there that are just saying that is a bad comparison. And I think that's bullshit. I think that there are both movies that it could have gone so poorly, but they really take a real genuine look at what the hell we've been going through for these last, you know, however many years. And I shuddered at the idea of Ari Aster making a political movie. I was like, oh God, what is this going to be? Especially COVID. And it's one of my favorite movies of the year. And I love One Battle After Another much more than Eddington, but I still think Eddington is great. And I think it approaches it in such a smart, interesting way, a scary way, a weird way. And the fact that both these movies came out this year, I think they definitely belong in conversation with one another.
Yeah, and just to build on that, I've seen some people say that One Battle After Another is what Eddington couldn't do, and but I'm not going to love One Battle at the expense of Eddington.
Sure.
I do like One Battle better. I gave it 5 out of 5. Well, Eddington I gave 4, but still, I think they're both tapping into the same thing. And I think what both of those movies do is they go after the extremes of both the right and the left, but the truth in both of those films, I think, has an identity to it. The truth in both those films, even like in Eddington, COVID is a real thing. Like
Sure.
COVID is the truth of that film, even though the people who are espousing different beliefs, I think, are shown to be somewhat equally ridiculous. And I feel like a Netflix movie during Trump's first year, the kids in Eddington would just be espousing their beliefs, and it would be some sort of like mic drop monologue that would just be incredibly cringe.
Yeah.
And I love this idea that both the films are like, okay, right and left, you're both kind of annoying. Left, you're annoying, but at least you're right.
Right.
You're just annoying. So I don't know. I feel like there's more layers, and it's filmmaking that's not afraid to piss people off.
Yeah, and that's super, super important when you're getting into these kinds of issues, because, like I said, it's just bullshit if it's just a movie that's like one side is right and one side. That's never how anything works. I mean, not really, but it kind of is sometimes, but not really. So, but any other thoughts about One Battle After Another that you want to bring up before we wrap up here?
Just one more real quick. I got the Coen brothers as a piece, specifically No Country for Old Men.
Sure.
I don't know if anyone else has said that, but I love the way the third act of One Battle of Another, you think it's going to be a showdown between DiCaprio and Penn, and it turns out to be a message more seeped into society about what the film is saying, which No Country does brilliantly, and this movie does brilliantly too. When you think about it, DiCaprio, it has no impact whatsoever on this film, but as I think a critic, I think David Ehrlich said, that's the point of the movie, is he needs to let go and realize that he just needs to be a father and not try to like control things. And I feel like that's kind of the same conclusion that Tommy Lee Jones kind of comes to at the end of No Country for Old Men, is that the world is controlling things. You can only do so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And No Country is so damn good. And it definitely came to mind a bunch of times. And also what came to mind a bunch of times during this movie is I can't believe we haven't gotten Leo in a Coen Brothers movie. Like if they ever do get back together and do something, that like kind of needs to happen, I feel like.
I feel like that could be the return.
Yeah, it would be it would be so good. It would like he is like born with that schmucky face of his, and like he's so perfect for that kind of thing. But absolutely great pieces all around. Paul, tell people where they can find you and everything you're up to.
Letterboxd is the place I'm most active. Just find me there at Paul Thomas, and I'm always reviewing stuff. And you can also find Hysteria Fest on Instagram. That's a good thing. We're always doing things for my film festival. We have an event coming up in October that I post about all over there.
Beautiful. Right on. Well, Paul, great getting you back on, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that conversation about One Battle After Another. Thank you so much to my guests, Joe Black, Louis Samra, Jason Harris, Samantha Soriano, Derrick Murray, and Paul Hibbard. That was a fun one to put together. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're enjoying piecing it together, make sure you are subscribed wherever it is that you're listening right now. Maybe even drop a little 5-star rating and review. That would be very helpful. And of course, you can follow us on social media at Piecing Pod. Also, if you want to join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, that's where we continue the conversation about all the movies we talk about here on the show. A great community of movie lovers, and you'll have a great time in there, so come join. Also, don't forget, we have a bunch of live shows on the way. You can check piecingpod.com to enter to win some tickets. At the time that this goes up, I think, we'll have already done Good Boy, which is happening tomorrow at the time I'm recording this. But we got Good Boy at Downtown Cinemas. Coming up, we got Tron Ares at Downtown Cinemas, and we have The Last Dragon, also at Downtown Cinemas. I'll be announcing my next show at Maya Cinemas probably this week. It's going to be at the end of October, so that's coming up as well, and we'll announce some more stuff soon. So just follow me on all the things. There's also my Substack mailing list that you can get signed up for. Lots of ways to stay connected to me and piecing it together. And speaking of me, we got to close this out with a piece of music like I always do. And I am going to, you know what? This is, like I said, this is the biggest movie of the year. I might as well use this moment to remind you all that aside from all my silly, fun music about my pets, the Pup Pups, which, by the way, does have a new album on the way. I'll be announcing that very soon. I am still working on another David Rosen album. My albums of real instrumental, like serious music that I haven't done in quite a while. I've been very busy making silly pet songs, but I am still planning my next David Rosen album, which will be out, if not at the end of this year, it'll be out at the beginning of next year. And it's like 18 songs, and they're all almost done. They're all anywhere from like 80% to 100% finished each song. So just putting finishing touches on it whenever I find little bits and pockets of time. But it is coming, as well as a bunch of music videos. And I'm going to play a song from that right now just to kind of remind you that, hey, more David Rosen music is on the way. This is a song I feel like goes well with the theme of One Battle After Another. It's a song called In Circles, which actually has a music video made by Joe Black's friend Damon Packard. It's completely insane and super, super weird. But anyway, you'll get to see that sometime next year. But yeah, we're going to go with In Circles to close out today's episode. Hope you enjoy it, and we'll be back with more Piecing It Together real soon.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.